Hi there and welcome to Capital View. With the Bihar elections announced, that state is now the next battleground to shape the immediate political future of India. Joining me on this episode is one of the authorities on North Indian politics, himself now a politician, no longer a psephologist, Yogendra Yadav. Thank you so much.
Good that you said no longer as a apologist. That's my previous life.
Right. But I want you to wear your psephologist hat for just a bit because the Bihar polls have been announced. What is your sense of what's happening in Bihar?
It may not be fair for me to try and comment on the specific outcome and possibilities, etc., things that I used to do. Right. A, because I'm involved in some ways in public life, at least. Two, I don't have access to the kind of technical scientific polling that I used to have. Let me begin by making just two broad points. One is no matter who forms the government, BJP will emerge as the preeminent political force of Bihar, which is a major shift from what Bihar used to be. Remember, BJP used to be number 3 or number 4 party of Bihar. Now, we cannot be very sure of the outcome, at least I wouldn't get into that guessing game of what the outcome would be. But the manner in which the game is being played, which is BJP versus the rest, all major political formations coming to oppose the BJP. What it would do, whether BJP loses or wins, is that it makes BJP number 1 political force of Bihar. That is tragic for Bihar because it actually in many ways reverses all the gains of social justice politics of the last 2 decades. Whenever you have a broad coalition which is against one force, a force which wasn't even number 2 force of Bihar till recently, what you are doing in the long run is to ensure that it emerges as the pole around which Bihar politics is organized. That to me is the long-term implication of this election, no matter what the result is. I'm not into guessing the result. The other thing is because of this, because Lalu-Nitish alliance largely has arithmetic, which is a euphemism for getting its caste coalitions right. So they have a caste coalition. BJP is trying to focus on the chemistry of voters, which is namely to speak about governance, to speak about future of Bihar, etc., which BJP has no business to, BJP has no track record to, but they are able to do so. And that to me is the real tragedy of Bihar. And I say this might look like a political statement, but I think there's also a deeply analytical statement, which is to say no matter who wins, Bihar loses in this election. Bihar loses because, one, the choice is between absolutely naked majoritarianism versus a completely defocused caste coalition which offers nothing for the future of Bihar, which includes some of the most corrupt political forces that this country has known. So corruption versus majoritarianism, take your pick. That's the thing Bihar faces. And that to me is really tragic for Bihar.
Right. Would you say that the BJP is simply building on the gains it has already made? Because we saw in 2014 that they won almost 30 seats in Bihar in the assembly elections, that which amounted to about 123 out of the 242 assembly segments. So do you see the BJP consolidating itself slowly?
Of course, that's what BJP is trying to. That is what any party would try to if you do so well in the parliamentary elections. The question is, what is BJP's opponents doing? What exactly are they trying to achieve? And the whole idea that somehow you gather everyone against the BJP and that is secular politics, it appears very vacuous form of politics to me.
It's a vacuous form of politics.
Absolutely, and
so
it shows.
The Nitish-Lalu alliance is just not a working proposition to you.
Look, it may work electorally. As I said, it's not fair for me to comment on the electoral prospects and possible outcomes in terms of seats. I'm speaking of the politics of it. And the politics of it is that this shows the bankruptcy of secular politics in our country.
Your former colleague, your former comrade Arvind Kejriwal of the Aam Aadmi Party has also gone and put his weight behind the Lalu-Nitish alliance, this anti-Modi alliance. What do you make of that?
Isn't it tragic? You have an anti-corruption movement in this country, such a powerful anti-corruption movement, Thousands of people give their lives to that movement, to build that movement. Millions of people come out of their homes for the first time to fight against political corruption in this country. And within 3 years, leader of that movement stands with a coalition headed by Nitish Kumar. The question is not about Nitish Kumar's personal probity. I'm nobody to comment on that. But remember, we said Manmohan Singh's personally taking bribe or not taking bribe makes no difference because he heads a corrupt regime. This is as true of Nitish Kumar as it was of Manmohan Singh. And remember, he heads a coalition which has Lalu Prasad Yadav, which possibly would have NCP in it. So, anti-corruption coalition involving Lalu Prasad Yadav, Nitish Kumar, Sharad Pawar. Who else are we waiting for?
You talk about the bankruptcy of secularism and the manner in which secularism has been abandoned perhaps by those who should uphold it. How far is the Congress responsible for this? Because the Congress again is part of this alliance, it's tied up with this anti-Modi force. Has it interpreted secularism as stop Modi at all costs? And does that where the bankruptcy lie?
Absolutely. Let me clarify again. When I say bankruptcy of secularism, I do not mean bankruptcy of the idea of secularism. It's a sacred idea. It's very much a pillar of our, foundational pillar of our republic. India wouldn't be India if we are not secular. But the practice of secularism by parties like Congress to begin with, later on followed by Samajwadi Party, RJD and all other parties that claim to be secular, this politics has become a way of keeping minorities a hostage. Keep Muslims hostage on security question. Don't even allow them to think about jobs, education, housing, the real life concern. Keep them hostage. On the other hand,
keep them hostage to fear.
To fear, that's right. Danga ho jayega, insecurity. We'll save you from any riot. And in case riots
Modi
don't...
is Gabbar Singh.
That's
Gabbar Singh
right. So you see, this happened, this succeeded, it clicked for a while. After some time, minorities get to see through this. They see the complete fraud in this. So secularism has to be reinvented. And when secular politics becomes as pathetic as it has become today, then of course it has no option except to get into that arithmetic jod tod of get everyone against BJP, and that's your great secularism. That is no secularism.
Right. And do you think voters will see through precisely this kind of cynical secularism?
They already are beginning to see it. 2014, Mr. Modi's victory was a mark of this complete distrust of what was being dished out to them in the name of secularism. I do hope they also begin to see the other side of it, and they are beginning to, which is what is being dished out to them in the name of Hindutva.
Do you think Mr. Modi, the way he's campaigning in Bihar, his kind of speeches in Bihar, do you think he's coming across as a change agent, as someone who at least is different or is promising something different? Is Modi a change agent?
His coming across and his being are two very, very different things, as we have seen in the last 1 year. He promised all kinds of things. He's a great campaigner. He's a great communicator. In the last 1 year, Indians have discovered that there is a huge gap between what he promises and what he delivers. And as Mr. Shah has now himself famously admitted, these are jumlas. He's a very good jumlebaj. He's great. So yes, he's promising all kinds of things to Biharis. The question is not why Mr. Modi's things have appeal because of what he says. I think the real thing is what has happened in the background, and that refers to the failure of politics of social justice in Bihar. In the name of social justice, Bihar has undergone a huge revolution in the last 25 years or so. But what began as a major change of the feudal mindset of Bihar got stuck because this social justice was not connected to any developmental gains.
So you do believe that Bihar is in danger of rolling back?
Exactly. As I spoke of the bankruptcy of secular politics, just look at the bankruptcy of social justice politics. Social justice today has become a private limited company or a caste company. Look at the appointments in Uttar Pradesh. All appointments being dished out to one single caste. How can you possibly sustain it? What moral legitimacy would it have? people would start mocking at social justice. Social justice would become a word of hate.
What do we say about Nitish Kumar? How can we assess Nitish Kumar? As you rightly say, that he came to power on the social justice plus plank. But somehow, the very things that he seemed to be castigating at that time, he's now part of that same system. He was coming to power on the basis of a rejection of Lalu's Jungle Raj, of Nutan Bihar, of Naya Bihar. Now he's back to Lalu. So what do we make of Nitish Kumar?
Nitish Kumar is in many ways a tragic figure, very uniquely poised. He was uniquely poised because in terms of caste hierarchy of Bihar, he was placed where he could have appealed to people up and below. He was also uniquely poised as someone who actually understood governance, administration, could deliver. But someone who is given up too soon. He tried once, he actually succeeded.
Yes.
Now, just to give up everything because you lose one Lok Sabha election badly, and then to surrender to everything that you said you stood against. This is tragic for Bihar. Those who have watched Nitish closely wouldn't be surprised because his entire history has been history of compromises of this kind. While it seems that the reputation is that he wouldn't accept money himself, like Manmohan Singh probably never did. But he had started tolerating corruption quite some time ago. And his regime has been a corrupt regime. So it's a Manmohan Singh-like figure who presides on a corrupt regime. He had already made all these compromises, and then comes the final compromise now with Lalu Prasad Yadav and everyone else. Nitish, even if he were to lose this election, if Nitish said, all right, I've done my 10 years, I'm being shown the door right now, I have another 5 years to wait and build, and go with a principal cause. He could have been the one person who brought social justice and development together. But this unwillingness to sit out and to think of some long-term politics, this impatience, this desire for gains overnight, and somehow to cling on to power at all cost, this is the bane of our politics.
So the BJP, whether it forms a government or not, will emerge as the preeminent force in Bihar, and as a result, the dominant caste of yesteryear will be back in the saddle. Let's take a short break at this point, come back with lots more on the other side with Yogendra Yadav on the land acquisition bill, what it means also for farmers, what does it also mean for the future of the politics of the third front or the third way. That's after the break. Welcome back to Capital View. The Bihar polls have been announced, and we're talking to an authority on North Indian politics who is also now a politician and no longer a psephologist, Yogendra Yadav. The land acquisition ordinances have been rolled back by this government. Do you believe that this is a belated recognition on the part of the Modi government that yes, farmers' issues were being ignored, and that this land bill, this new land bill that they want to bring, deserves a much wider debate?
Very belated for a government which has actually done a series of anti-farmer things. I can't remember a government in the country which in 1 year has taken so many anti-farmer steps. Land acquisition got noticed in the media, but it began with bringing down urea import, which created a big crisis. The government simply went back on its written promise of increasing the minimum support price, actually gave an affidavit to the contrary in the Supreme Court. It simply banned bonuses being given by state governments on MSP, and it is rolling back the ordinances, but also the purchase of,
right.
the purchase of these food grains. All this being done in 1 year. So while we should wait for a more comprehensive judgment on Mr. Modi's government, but when it comes to farmers, we are dealing with an anti-farmer government. What has happened now is that
this is an anti-farmer government.
I think this is a fair assessment of Mr. Modi's government, that this is a government that couldn't care less for the farmers. But this image has now begun to hit the government. And this is when they said, oh my God, we need to roll it back. This is really beginning to seriously hurt. This land acquisition ordinance was not about government acquiring land for public purpose. This was strictly and only about government acquiring land for private parties. That is what the debate was.
Yes.
And the real estate interests riding on the government being able to do so are just too huge. Just imagine Mumbai-Delhi corridor, 1400 kilometers, 3 kilometers on either, 1.5 kilometers on either side. It's a huge real estate property. It has nothing to do with canals, nothing to do with irrigation. It is the biggest real estate scam in the country.
3 anxieties that had propelled Mr. Modi to power. One was the anxiety about not having a good enough leader. The other was the anxiety about the economy and where the economy was going. And the third anxiety was a cultural anxiety about loss of culture, loss of tradition. Do these also play out in a way in Bihar, and do you believe that these are still important issues?
Well, these are, I mean, my whole point was exactly as you captured it, which is that we should not look at Mr. Modi as a person. Mr. Modi is a phenomena, and that phenomena actually refers to 3 things. It challenges the very idea of India in 3 fundamental ways. And my argument essentially was that Mr. Modi addresses some real anxieties. And unless the secular, liberal, progressives learn to address those 3 anxieties, they cannot take on Mr. Modi. Yes, this is playing out in Bihar. It is playing out, as I said, about the simple fraudulence of secularism. It doesn't address the cultural identity question that majority of this country has. Second, there's a developmental anxiety. People want to see growth, development. They don't have a language, they simply call it vikas. Economists can keep debating whether it's growth or whether it's development, whether it's holistic development or whatever. People want some material well-being. And unless you address that, and if you keep playing this caste versus that caste kind of a game, there's a limit to it. People say enough is enough. I want something. So yes, these anxieties are playing out. And there is also the third thing that Mr. Modi held out, namely the promise of strong leadership. All these would play out in some way or the other.
Do you believe in a way he's still Neta number 1 at the moment in Indian politics?
He is, and that's a comment on all other Netas.
Right.
It is not because of the stature that he has, but because of the dwarfing of imagination, dwarfing of politics that we have seen in the politics of our country.
Right. If the BJP were to win in Bihar, do you believe that the opposition will be even more demoralized and Mr. Modi will be even more of a domineering force in Indian politics, that he will dominate Indian politics very, very seriously?
We tend to read too much into one assembly election very often. The broad picture is that BJP as a party is becoming more and more of a national party, which it actually never was. It was a party of some regions of India. And Congress is shrinking into becoming party of some regions of this country, like BJP used to be. That's the larger scenario in which all these elections fit in. But yes, if Mr. Modi wins, if BJP wins Bihar, it would strengthen BJP, it would sort of strengthen their arrogance. It would strengthen their capacity to do things which in many ways go against the poor, the disadvantaged minorities of the country. So yes, it would strengthen BJP very much.
Going forward, what is the future of the politics of the third front, or the third way, or alternative politics? Because we've seen Kejriwal, who perhaps represented that to some extent, but he's either tying up with Nitish Kumar and Lalu, or does the politics of the third way or alternative politics have to tie up with one or the other political party? What is the future of the politics of the third front?
As we conduct this interview, I read this morning about the Dusu elections. Now this new force, supposedly Aam Aadmi Party with CYSS, has entered there. And the report says that the Congress is complaining that Aam Aadmi Party is spending too much money. So on the one hand, it's funny that Congress is complaining about someone using money. On the other hand, it tells you how deep the rot is, that a new force is now outbidding Congress and ABVP in spending money in do-so election. This is the tragedy of alternative politics. I've always argued that alternative politics is not about political alternatives. That is to say, those who happen to be around, those who missed the bus, got together in the platform and said, we have a new, we'll ride a new vehicle. That's not alternative politics. Alternative politics has to be about an alternative vision of India, response to the 3 anxieties that Mr. Modi has addressed. B, it has to be about an alternative political culture, being different. No more money, no more politics of money, of muscle power, of opportunism, lies, and propaganda. It has to move away. And alternative politics has to be a politics which has a different organization, which is to say internal democracy, capacity to listen to differences. That is what alternative politics is all about. And I'm afraid the so-called third front of today is the biggest obstacle in the way of alternative politics in the country. If this is what alternative politics is...
The third front is the obstacle for alternative politics.
Absolutely. Those who occupy the third space right now, these are default occupiers of the space. And if they continue to occupy this space, their secularism will give rise to MIM in this country. Their way of social justice will lead to Hardik Patels, and this will lead to caste parties of the kind that are coming up. Their way of promoting democracy in this country will produce one family parties all over the country. So this is not third space, this is not third force, this is not alternative politics. Alternative politics will come from alternative vision, alternative organization, alternative political culture. It will come from movements from outside mainstream politics. One such experiment has run into trouble. But that doesn't mean that the nation and alternative politics will wait. Similar experiments will happen, and the last 3 or 4 years have pumped in so much of energy in this country. No matter who currently occupies that space, no matter what Aam Aadmi Party is doing with that wonderful energy, that wonderful capital that this country had, but that's too powerful to wait under the misdeeds of Aam Aadmi Party. I think something beautiful will emerge from this sooner or later.
Is there any chance at all that you can go back to where you once were with your old comrades in the Aam Aadmi Party, go back in any form to that force again?
There's something funny. I keep hearing these lovely sound bites. Arvind said this to Rajdeep in one of the interviews. Then he said it 3 or 4 times again. Every time Aam Aadmi Party moves away from its ideals one step further, I get one lovely bite about me and Prashant Bhushan. Then they move one step further away and I get one more lovely bite about ourselves. If that is what is being thought about, which is to say, move away step by step from all the ideals that this movement stood for, and then let's try and get some people who would give us moral legitimacy, then I'm afraid they are into a strange game. And that's not why people like Prashant and me came to public life. I'm in public life.
Do you ever miss the quiet world of academics?
Miss not being able to read books and being able to write in quiet. But to be absolutely honest, this is what I always wanted to do with my life. This is what Kishan Patnaik taught me. What were considered to be days when I was famous on television, I always felt so suffocated. Doing what I'm doing now, I may not be a great success in the eyes of everyone, but this failure, if that is what it is more fulfilling than the success I had as a psephologists or anything.
I think you've been as wise and as insightful as ever, importantly pointing out that the politicians of the third front are precisely those who are stopping the rise of alternative politics or the rise of the politics of the third way. Yogendra Yadav, thank you so much for joining me on Capital View. That's it on this week's episode of Capital View. Join us again next week.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/etnow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at etnowlive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/etnow.